Chuck Kent for Branding Magazine and the Branding Roundtable. This month we're talking about the essentials of building a brand career. We're talking to a number of people around the world, including Debbie Millman, who is the CMO here at Sterling Brands, headquartered in New York City. And you can, I hope, read all of the answers from all the very smart people as to what it takes to build and make a branding career thrive. But I was particularly taken with a couple of Debbie's answers that I wanted to explore further, so that will serve as the introduction to our roundtable this month. And what you really got into was, I don't know if provocative is exactly the word, but it certainly goes beyond the grocery store shelf, let's put it that way. And
no pun intended.
You, all puns intended. You described this era that we're in as a day and age where brand is an extension of human facility, whether it's psychic or psychological. Brand is an extension of human facility, whether it's psychic or psychological. Can you explain that to me?
Well, I believe that condition of brands reflect the condition of our culture. And we're living in a day and age where we're using brands to project who we want other people to think we are. And so whatever it is, whether it's sneakers or jeans or eyeglasses or handbags or iPhones or coffee cups, all of these things signify a specific persona to an audience, to any kind of an audience, that then uses those signals to be able to put together the puzzle that is you, the human. We use brands now to telegraphically project who we are into the world, or who we would like people to think that we are, or who we would like to think of ourselves.
So it's sort of the consumer curation of our image via brands, or what makes it different now? Because there's always been, I think, some, I want to be seen as rich in the mid-20th centuries.
Absolutely. There's always been a way in which humans have wanted to project an image of who they are. For many, many, many years, it was your place in society. And so, are you married? Do you have a wedding band? Do you have children? What kind of job do you have? What kind of car do you drive? Those were essentially the amulets that we used to describe our humanity in the United States. Now it's much more specific. It's much more thin sliced. We have tribes. We have tribes of Nike wearers. We have tribes of smart cars. We have tribes of any number of kinds of brands. And those tribes signify the vision and the values that we have about being human. And we use those signals to connect with others. I believe that the way that we're communicating now with technology has a very, very big part in the overarching need that we have to connect. So for years and years and years, our primary way of connecting was in our family. We connected to our parents, we connected to our siblings, we connected to a very specific group of friends that more often than not were geographical accidents. They happened because they were near to us. Then we started to see a tremendous shift in the demographics of populations and how those populations were living. So for example, in the 1950s, about 1 in 10 people lived alone. What's interesting about that way of life, as well as the demographic, was that person was almost nearly always shunned. They were considered a spinster or an old maid. And there was a very specific image that they had in the marketplace. Fast forward 66 years, and we are now living in a day and age where 1 in 3 people, 1 in 3 households are single person households. From a statistical point of view, that's staggering. That is significant. And what's even more interesting to me is the attitudinal shift that we have for that single person living alone. It went from being an old maid or a spinster to Carrie Bradshaw or Lena Dunham. And so we have this shift now in how we're connecting because we're no longer able to connect as easily with the people that we were living with if we're living by ourselves. So we're doing that with technology. But if you look back to when that technology first became popular in the mid 2000s, the technology at the time was very insular. I don't know if you remember a time when we were saying that civilization was doomed because of the iPod isolation that was occurring. Well, we went very quickly from the iPod being launched at the end of 2001 to 2005, where MySpace became nearly overnight from a data storage site to the most popular social networking site in the world. In 2005 and 2006, more people were going to MySpace than they were going to Google. And so we very quickly, as a species, created a framework in which to connect in these devices. So it wasn't that people were in love with the devices. It was people were in love with the way that they were able to connect with each other in those devices. And so that became yet another brand tribe.
So I want to get to how that impacts not just brands, but working with and for brands. Because in your Why We Brand presentation, great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
If you haven't seen it, go out on YouTube and get it. And you really get deeper into that. And you say, on its best day, branding is a human-centered behavior created to construct meaning. And it's about belonging to a tribe, to a religion, to a family. And branding demonstrates that sense of belonging, and that sense of belonging allows you to feel closer, more connected to people, which makes you feel better about yourself. That's way past the grocery store shelf.
Yes, I think that people are far less interested in a different form or a different flavor that appears on shelf as opposed to a difference that a brand can make in their lives. Now, I am a very strong proponent of being honest about what brands can actually do. And so if, as Dan Pink has said, if a brand is making a promise that they're going to make you a better person, then you're in a fool's game. If somebody feels that by the sheer virtue of having a 60-inch flat screen TV is going to make them a better person, then they're going to find out very quickly that their purchases metabolize. Human beings metabolize everything very quickly. We metabolize how full we feel after we eat. We metabolize over the long haul feelings of love, and we metabolize our purchases. And so we get used to them, and then we are on the hedonistic treadmill and want more and more and more.
What pleasure have you brought me in the last 5 minutes?
Exactly. What have you done for me lately? So I believe that on its best day, what branding does is allow us to understand other people's likes, dislikes, preferences, needs, and we are able to connect with. It's a shorthand in many ways.
How far do you think brands can go down the meaning trail?
Well, I believe that religions are brands. It's a construct of meaning. And even the organizations that are against branding use the very tenets of branding that they so willfully disdain. They have websites, they have logos, they have fundraising, they have all sorts of things that are the trappings of
brands have evangelists.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And if you look at a religion and you see a mark and you see a purpose and you see a vision and you see all sorts of spokespeople, they are no different than any brand, because a brand is a series of semiotic constructs that we use to create meaning. This isn't a judgment. This isn't to say that because religion, I believe that religions are brands, that they're bad things. I don't believe that there's bad and good in this construct. I believe it's just a way of establishing meaning. And this is the way in which we do it. And we've been doing this for 50,000 years. We've been doing this since our brains reorganized and became the triune brain that we have today. And so we have been creating meaning since that time. And we did that when we recorded our daily endeavors on the walls of caves at Lascaux. And we do that now when we put up our status updates on the walls of Facebook. And so there's virtually no difference other than the sophistication in the devices that we're using.
So, as it relates to undertaking a career in branding and to serve any kind of level of intent of pursuing meaning, two questions. Does that involve a responsibility at all?
Mm-hmm. You have to be accountable to what you create. Absolutely. You have to be accountable to what you're positioning. You have to be accountable to what you're designing. You have to be able to live with yourself.
So accountable, therefore, for more than just how much of it you've managed to help sell.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I definitely am a big proponent in Milton Glazer's do no harm purpose and protocol.
All right. And the second question is, if brands are one of the things associated with our pursuit of meaning, the larger pursuit of being human, what does one need to bring to the table to be a branding professional?
Well, I don't think that branding is really about branding. I think branding is a balance of a number of different disciplines that come together to create the most powerful, meaningful expression of the symbols. And so I think you need a deep understanding of cultural anthropology. You need to be able to really understand the pulse of a culture. You need to be able to understand the global conversations that we're having now, how people feel the way they do about things, why they feel the way they do about things. You have to be able to very quickly assess the patterns and recognize those patterns in our behavior. It's very much about behavioral psychology, the science of the way we see. Why do we see things in the way that we do? We essentially can see far more than we can comprehend. And so we're constantly self-selecting our visual reality. Well, why and how do we do that? We choose the things that we recognize to see. And so it's about understanding the science of the way we see, the science of the way that we think, and the basic, a very, very, much more than basic, deep understanding of our psychological prowess. It's also understanding economics, the business imperative. People talk about a value proposition. I think that's old-fashioned and overrated. I think it's much more important to be talking about what makes something valuable to someone, what makes somebody willing to spend more money on this product than this product because they are sure that this one is either better, gives them more badge value, more cachet, more approval, any number of things. So understanding the valuability of something. And then, of course, it's about really understanding how to create meaningful breakthrough creative in order to be able to solicit the imagination of your audience. So I think all of those disciplines are really critical to understanding the very big, wide open discipline that is branding.
So last question, how would you rate the business in terms of how it's doing of bringing that very wide-ranging sort of intellect and sensitivity to its duties?
I think we're living in a really democratized time for branding because people are able to weigh in very, very quickly and hold companies accountable. And I love that. The internet has really created a forum for an ability to connect very quickly with like-minded consumers that have many of the same desires and ways in which they want brands to be performing and behaving in the marketplace. So, who would ever have thought 10, 15 years ago that you'd have a change.org petition on the redesign of a logo? And I think that's fantastic. It holds people accountable, which is what brand consultants need to do at the end of the day. They need to be held accountable by the people that they're serving.
Okay, all you would-be brand consultants, you've heard it here from Debbie Millman at Sterling Brands. I invite you to read the rest of her comments as well as those of many of her peers in this month's Branding Roundtable. Thank you very much, Debbie. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Chuck. It's been a real pleasure.